Anybody else? Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the April drought monitoring work group call. And as we normally do, we start off with the National Weather Service report with Chuck Jones taking the lead on that. So I think you're ready, Chuck, and why don't you go ahead and get started.
All right, thanks, Dave. Good morning, everyone. Just more bad news for you as we go through this. Maybe some hope down the line, though. Sorry. So far this month, we've had some snow up in the northern mountains. That's been by far the best precip so far this month in New Mexico. Much of the southwest half to two-thirds, virtually nothing. Has been a little bit of rain and snow out in the northeast and far east central plains. But overall, not doing too well this month. We're going to go backwards in time. We'll look here at March coming up. It did vary quite a bit. The northeast did very poorly, but the northwest here did pretty well, and actually much of the south near to above normal precipitation as well. But as a whole, the state just ended up with 64% of the normal, and then that was the 41st driest on record going back to the late 1800s. And then for this calendar year so far, even more bleak, 34% of normal for the state as a whole. The northern mountains doing the best, if you can call it that, at 42%, and the Central Valley at 22%. The Northeast was close. I believe it was 23 or 24% of normal. So, very, very dry, as we've been talking about this year, especially January was record dry, and January, February also was the driest on record. And for the first 3 months, it's still pretty dry, third driest on record. Sorry, I don't have that placed right. But quite dry, with only 1970s and a couple of years ago being drier. So, an inch and a third below normal already, and just 34% of normal. For the water year, if we go back to the last 6 months, October of last year through March, statewide average a little bit better, 47% of normal. The northern mountains were up in the 61%, and the southern deserts at 24% of normal. We have it broken up in here by divisions, and you can see a couple of these divisions, the northeastern plains and central valleys in particular, doing pretty poorly, as well as the southern deserts too. So pretty poor. No really good news here over the last 6 months. Now, if we look at the water year here again, it ends up being the 12th driest on record and over 2 inches below normal across the state on average. So, quite dry again here over the last 6 months. We start throwing in the last 12 months, consecutive months, from April of last year through March of this year. Of course, that gets in July and September rainfalls from last year, September being near record wet. We end up at the 50th driest, just 3/4 of an inch below normal. So that sounds a lot better, but keep in mind that's pretty much just from 2 months. We had 58% of the precipitation for the entire 12-month period just in those 2 months. Just for fun, I didn't put this on a slide or anything. I took the July and September statewide precipitation average, dropped that to just normal for July and normal for September of last year. And if we took those amounts into mind, we ended up at the 15th driest on record. So those 2 months really helped the state, and we certainly needed that. Certainly has helped the Pecos River. Without that rain, we'd just be in very dire straits. We'd be talking about no water at all in the Pecos, basically. So we're fortunate that we did get the rain, even though it caused some flooding. we'll certainly take it at this point. So then that gets damped out. If we go back 24 months, we're looking at the 8th driest on record, more than 6 inches below statewide average. And then if we go back to 36 months, consecutive months, we're at the 6th driest, so it's even worse, and we're good 10 inches below normal precipitation across the state. And it's no better at 48 months, the 5th driest, and 60 months, 6th driest. So the screaming message is here that we have short-term drought returning, and certainly long-term drought beyond a year or more is still with us, and it's not good news at all.
Now, this is Richard. If you look at the 42-month period, October 2010 to March 2014, third driest on record for 42-month periods, and if you take the September and July 2013 rainfall out of that, you're at the driest. In fact, if you just make, as you were noting through your exercise, July and September last year normal, you're still at the driest 42-month period on record.
Yeah, well, thank goodness for the rain when we got it. But 97%, over 97% of New Mexico is in drought status. And unfortunately, almost 80% of that now is in severe to extreme drought. And we're starting to see the evil exceptional drought showing up in a couple places here along the far eastern part of the state, close to Texas. So things continue to deteriorate across New Mexico for much of the last 6 months, and especially so far this year. Oops. I don't know why I did that. If we look at a 3-month change, we've had a 1 to, in some places, 2 category deterioration across a good portion of the state. The Northeast probably getting the brunt, the worst of it here, with a lot of extreme drought, and now a little bit of exceptional drought. And again, about 80% in severe to extreme drought, and 97% of the states in some drought, with just a small area down here in southeast New Mexico where it's no drought indicated, or we're in a little bit of a just abnormally dry. We haven't looked at some soil moisture conditions here in the last couple of months, so Deirdre Kahn put these together for us. Obviously, very little precipitation so far this year. The soil observations are showing a decreased deep layer moisture once again. And a lot of the moisture that we had in the fall, at least, it's hanging in there to some extent through the winter. But as you'll see, it's starting to dwindle as well, and we're talking even down at a 20-inch depth. This first slide is from Cebolleta, down here in the south of Albuquerque in the Rio Grande Valley. The big circle here, obviously this is in response to the July precipitation, and then of course here is September's precipitation getting down in the 20-inch area quite nicely, but since then just a very sharp decrease. And if you look over here now, this is 2014, the orange line here. We can see it coming very close to the conditions we were at in 2010 and 2012, or this is 2012 up here, 2010 and 2011 and 13. Sorry, this is 2012 here. But the bottom line is, we're really only talking, 0.5% improvement in the soil moisture at the 20-inch level. So basically, we're back to being exceptionally dry, right around 10% of 10% moisture. Yeah, this is our longer-term record that we have here at Crossroads down in southeast New Mexico. Just the glaring, point here being that really since late 2010, we've been consistently near or below 10% moisture level as well at the 20-inch level, 20-inch depth. So looking at what we had wasn't very good. Let's see if we can get excited about anything in the future, and then perhaps we can. We'll continue probably with INSO neutral conditions here just for a little while longer, but it looks like then over the summer, the CPC forecasters are trending definitely toward the idea that El Nino develops. We are under an El Nino watch still, and they're saying a greater than a 50% chance of El Nino conditions developing by the summer. So, and this is old. I don't know if the new one came out today or not. I didn't have a chance to look. But, you know, I'm sure it's similar to this or probably even higher. And I know the European plume is quite dramatic, but I won't get too much into that. It's just suffice to say that things are looking better and better at this point for El Nino conditions to develop, and there's even some indications that we could be looking at a moderate to strong El Nino as well. CPC forecast is for May precipitation. No clear signal at this point. We're just looking at equal chances for above, near, or below normal precipitation. And temperatures, well, you know, it's the same thing here. Strong tendency for temperatures to be above normal for the month of May. Now, we're going to look at May through July as we get into the summer months. And this surprised some of us, but the CPC forecasters are suggesting a tendency toward above normal precipitation over New Mexico, especially the northwest and the west central areas, having a little better a chance there at 40+%. So they're trending a little bit toward above normal precipitation as we head into the monsoon season. And then again, the broken record here being a tendency toward warmer than normal temperatures for the May, June, and July time period. And then the drought outlook, the seasonal drought that goes through July, you know, based off what we've seen, this would make sense that the drought diminishes some, and actually perhaps even disappears in areas centered around Albuquerque. So this is certainly better than we've been seeing in recent months. Okay, that's all I do have more. Here we go. So what happens if El Nino develops here in New Mexico? And of course, it's going to depend on the strength. I don't have on here the slides that separate weak El Ninos from moderate and strong ones, but this takes them all into account. The black numbers are for the 20th century. The other numbers, which I believe are red, sorry, I'm colorblind, they're for the 4 El Nino events for this century, 21st century. And at all indications of the 4 events we've had so far, you know, it's significantly better in most of the 8 climate divisions here. Of course, there was 1 weak, 2 moderate, and 1 strong El Nino, I believe, for this century so far. So, you know, that would make sense that the percentages are maybe a little bit higher, and it's certainly a smaller data set. That was for the winter season, and here it is for the spring season. Better numbers all the way across for the 20th century versus the 21st century, but still precipitation near to above normal to well above normal over much of the state. So, you know, if we could get an El Nino development, especially if it's moderate or strong, there's a very good indication that we can end up with above normal precipitation across much of the state. Now, that's all I have. I'm sure there's questions, and I'm sure people want to throw in some comments as well about the upcoming potential for El Nino or anything else.
Yeah, this is Richard. About the soil moisture, I was just looking at the models that we have access to here, the VIC, the NODAS, and the CPC. I think leaky bucket. And the soil moisture conditions indicated on each of these varies from model to model. So I'd be more interested in the actual observations. And you're showing that soil moisture conditions are getting worse, I think, at the stations you showed.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't have a lot of these scan networks, especially for anything more than 10 years or so. It's tough, but yeah, I mean, it really looks like soil moisture is, what we had, what we benefited from in the summer and of last year is pretty much dwindled away. And of course, this site here, Crossroads, is on the far eastern plains, and they didn't benefit nearly as much from September rains as the western and central part of the state did. Anybody else? Anything to add, Victor?
No, hey Chuck, I was going to say your El Nino graphs for winter and spring are really, really compelling. I think those are great factoids, great piece of information, not only for this working group, but also I think for everyone in general to use going forward as this El Nino unfolds.
Yeah, we're working on an extensive special feature to put on our webpage. So
that's good. And then I'm forwarding you and David right now the April IRI enso blooms.
Okay.
They are out there.
Okay.
Actually, I got a copy from I forget the gentleman from IRI. I forget his name. Drawing a blank. But I will share those with you. And the good news is the European model and the Weather Service CFS V2 model, which are the two best models or better models, still are pretty bullish on a moderate to perhaps even strong El Nino developing later on this year. So that being the case, I think the facts, or excuse me, the graphs you created here are really, really useful. And I will add this, though, and I do intend to follow up on it. Maybe for our next call we'll have some more information. But this is myself speaking. I was a little bit surprised to see the CPC outlooks for New Mexico for the wintertime did not show any trend at all for towards El Nino. It just showed basically EC for the December, January, I think November, December, January, February, actually January, February, March. I think all of New Mexico was EC. So we need to check on that perhaps going forward and see why they were as cautious as they were. Like I said, I think you have some pretty compelling data, which you just showed, which shows that there is indeed, a pretty good signal for above normal precip in the winter and in the spring, with just a weak El Nino.
Mm-hmm. Where on here is the rest of the months to look at? Drawing a blank.
Just to the left of where you have your cursor, click on products. Where it says outlooks and forecasts, click on products. Scroll down some. One more.
There you go.
One more. The next one.
Oh, here.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
And then click on seasonal.
Yeah.
And go all the way down, Dave. Chuck, I'm sorry. Where it says all precip outlooks, very bottom. Right there.
Mm.
And these are all the various different 13-month periods. You can see for May, June, July, as you pointed out, for May, June, July, and for June, July, August, they're pretty bullish. Actually, hold on. Actually, for May, June, July, August, and JAS. So they're forecasting an above normal monsoon. That's good news.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great news, actually. But I guess tempering that great news is the fact for some reason they show EC in the winter and springtime.
Interesting.
Which doesn't really match up, like I said, I think, with the compelling information, the compelling graphs and information that you have there, at the state level, at the local level.
Yeah.
Well, there's also in the other parts of the country. I mean, for a strong El Nino, there's other areas that respond the other direction, slightly drier, but they don't show up on the maps either. And then other areas that are wet. I mean, the southeast, that shows up wet.
Yeah, but Dave, good point. All in all, I mean, for whatever reasons, I don't want to speak for CPC or anything, but it's a pretty cautious forecast because Texas also has just like New Mexico, Dave, as you all know, Texas also has a very strong wet signal during El Nino, also perhaps actually even wetter than y'all, and we're also pretty much an EC. For DJF there, which is wintertime, all of Texas is EC also. So we're a little bit befuddled here as to that, but hopefully by next month's phone call, we can get that looked at, maybe addressed. In the meanwhile, I think, like I said, Chuck, I think your graphs are very, very compelling.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's other products that are like diagnostic products, more of like height anomalies, and they kind of look at the large scale flows that make up these maps. Based on the the multi-model ensembles. Because all they have on the website, I know, it's just the temperatures and precip. So that was just a comment. I don't know if that exists.
I think that's all they have, Dave, is just temp and precip.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's something we should look into. What's going on? Okay, any more questions, comments on forecasts, current conditions? Yeah. Well, I just one just small note. Just but it's this significant thing we're seeing on the very end. Was it over on? Was it Quay or Curry? Some D4.
Yeah.
Just a tad. And what was Texas? What does Texas look like? Do you know, Richard?
Pardon me?
Do you know on the Texas side, on the Texas Panhandle, what how big an area that D4 is poking into New Mexico?
D4 was expanded a lot in the Texas Panhandle last week or this week, and let me. I can bring this up fairly quickly. I can give you a little bit better answer than that. In fact, it's covering most of the division.
Oh yeah.
Most of that area.
Wow.
It's right now. D4 is 10.3% of Texas, and it's all in the northwest area. The Panhandle, I would say, all of the Panhandle is D3 to D4, and probably a good 50% or better is D4.
Okay.
And that is poking into New Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dave, I think that's bleed over. That D4 you're looking at there is bleed over from Texas.
Yeah.
I used to say, I think the Texas side of the border has probably been worse than y'all. Especially, we did not quite share the deluges that y'all had, in September and July. In fact, Richard's stats early in the call were very compelling with regard to if you take July out, you take September out, it would be the driest 42-month period ever on record for a lot of New Mexico. Lubbock and Amarillo both are at their driest ever for 42 months. We're talking drier than the 1950s. We're talking drier than the Dust Bowl in the 30s.
Yeah, and
in the case of Lubbock, it's drier by 20%, which is astounding.
And if you look at the climate division-wide for Division 1, which is the Texas Panhandle High Plains Division, October 2010 to March 2014, that 42-month period is the driest on record for the Panhandle of Texas.
Wow.
Division-wide, as well as the individual stations. There's about 4 stations we looked at.
So, Dave, I guess the question might be for our group, and I notice, I'm comfortable with the current USDM depiction, but I guess we might, Richard, as next week's author, perhaps you might want to look at bleeding over a little bit more of that D4, westward into New Mexico, in that climate division 3, which probably is the worst off of all the various different New Mexico CDs.
Yeah. And I think we need to pay some give our Tucumcari office a call, since they're a little bit north of that, but they're in Quay County, and see what kind of ground reports information they can provide. Let's see, Tucumcari.
Yeah, I was also looking at the USDA statistics, the crop progress report, and statewide we're looking at about 70% of the range and pasture in poor to very poor condition. The topsoil moisture is somewhere on the order of 63%, short or very short. And let's see, they don't have that broken down by climate division on this report, but it'd be really nice to see how these particular statistics break down by region within the state.
Yeah. I just looked up Tucumcari, and they're 4 1/4 inches below normal for a water year. So that's quite a bit. That's like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th driest water year, according to ACES. So yeah, I think we need to pay attention to that area and see what's going on. Okay.
Yeah, Dave, I would say perhaps, for next week's DM, we perhaps need to look at expanding that D4 area westward out of Texas. Look at Curry, as you pointed out. Look at Curry,
and
Quay, perhaps Harding, and Union counties.
Yeah. Okay, we've got some homework to do. Good.
Well, Richard does too. He's next week's author.
Yep. He's got a lot of work to do.
I'll teach you to join our calls, Richard. We'll give you action items.
Okay. So let's move on to the next item on our agenda, U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Reservoir Status Report. And we have Raymond Abeta on the call.
Yes, sir. Alrighty, I'll get started. On the Rio Grande, Pectoral, reservoir is 10,204 acre-feet. Let's see, Heron, 91,258. Ovado, 18,371. Abiquiu, 144,539. Cochiti, 49,118. Elephant Butte, 363, 076. And Caballo, 39,534. We are irrigating full on the Rio Grande. They're doing some nice tight rotations, so they're managing with what little native we're getting to the system. Fortunately, we are getting a little bit into Ovado. La Puente hit 1,100 CFS earlier this morning, and so we're getting a little bit of water on the Chama. On the Rio Grande, not so much. You can see Del Norte is 1,253 CFS, and there's barely 174 making it to the state line. So Colorado's pretty much consuming the bulk of all of that. But they're managing with what little native right now is coming through. So at least, like I said, some is getting to Ovado, which is good. We cannot say the same for the Pecos, though. I'll give you the storages. For Santa Rosa, 94,859. Sumner, 41,387. Brantley, 25,722. Like I said, the snow is pretty much all melted off of Wesner Springs, and that's the Snowtop site for the Pecos, and nothing has made it into Santa Rosa. For instance, above Santa Rosa gauge is 1 CFS right now. So, according to what the report he was mentioning, if it's true, if we had not had that September rain event, we would have nothing to work with at all, basically, on the Pecos this year. But like you see, we could pretty close to full reservoirs. They're going to go ahead and make a block release this next week. There'll be some from Santa Rosa and Sumner, and CID is planning on sending about 50,000, or releasing about 50,000 acre feet downstream. Most of it's Brantley, and also some to pay to Texas. So that's where we're at. And we had those rains in September because we didn't get anything from the runoff. The snow is gone and nothing came in.
This is Richard. You mentioned a lot of acre feet in the reservoirs. How does that compare historically? Are they very low, record low, low?
Oh no! Right now, say like Santa Rosa is 94,000, or almost 95,000. The last few years, we've been running between 5 and 10,000 acre feet.
Oh, so the reservoirs are in not too bad of shape.
Very high. They're the highest we've been in years. All of that is from September's rain event.
Wow.
Sumner, for instance, over 41,000. We have been between 5 and 15,000 for years now. Just barely making it through. So yeah, I mean, we have not had this high storage in quite a long time.
Good. And I also noticed on the USGS stream flow, 28-day average stream flow, a lot of the stations are in the much below normal category, 10 percentile or less. A lot of other streams are near normal. Is this, the low stream flows, is that due to a water management decision, or is it due to climate?
Or are you talking about above Santa Rosa, like Pecos, Santo Chico, or Cañon de los Dark?
I'm not familiar with the specific basins, but on the map it'd be in the northern streams and western streams.
Yeah, the northern ones would be above our control. And like I said, that's just from the runoff itself.
Okay.
You see Pecos is 84 CFS today. By the time it gets Santo Chico, it's 26. And Cañon de Luta is 0. And right above Santa Rosa Reservoir is 1. So it's just not making it.
Okay, thanks.
It's not making it.
Hey, Ray, this is Victor for Fort Worth. I had a question for you, and I guess it sort of jives in with what you've been telling us. I noticed where Elephant Butte, the bad news is it's only 18% of capacity, which is horrific. But the good news is at this time last year it was like 11 or 12%, so it's up 50% from where it was last year. Do we know what we could attribute that to?
We did send some water down there. We are right now releasing from the minnows, so that gets down there, and then we also release some San Juan Chama water too for storage down in there. So, and then of course there was that September rain event. There was a lot of water going, through the Puerco and Rio Puerco, Rio Salado, and all that went through Santa Casia and all that area. So that was quite a bit too. That flowed for quite a while.
Has there been any changes at all in the management of Elephant Butte or the releases from Elephant Butte? Say, first part of this year as opposed to last year?
Well, they were trying to hold off as long as possible before they started to water. They were using the wells before, and then they'll probably start fairly soon, start watering, but they're trying to hold off as long as they could, and they were just trying to use their wells, basically, so. But like I said, I think they'll be starting some releases fairly soon. So we'll just see what we have, what we can do, and what we have, and hopefully on the Puente, on the Chama will keep, flowing, and we'll capture a little bit of water for the Pueblos, and then the Emergency Drought Act water for the district, for MRGCD, and then some for ESA purposes also. But we're grateful at least we're getting something to the Chama. Like I said, a lot of the others didn't play out. Hopefully the Tongadas will kick in something too. That's all I have.
All right, thanks,
My question.
Raymond.
Thanks, everyone.
I have a question for Richard and Victor. Considering how low the flow is on the Pecos and extreme southeast New Mexico, I'm wondering if maybe on both the Texas and New Mexico sides we should start talking about some degradation of the drought categories down there in the our western part of Texas and also southeast New Mexico. I agree with what Raymond just said, that we're showing historically low flows downstream from Carlsbad right now.
Hey, Greg, that's a good point. And looking at the latest USDM depiction, quite honestly, Texas is depicted a lot better than New Mexico is. So I think we probably want to bring that issue. We probably want to raise that issue to Dr. Nielsen Gavins next week in our Texas call, Greg.
Yeah, unfortunately,
we can do it
I'm
jointly.
off on Monday. If you could bring
remind
it up.
each other to do it, perhaps. But it looks like Texas needs more fixes than New Mexico does, at least as far as the map goes.
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to be off on Monday, so if you would bring it up, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, that's been the back of my mind. And then glance at that, it's been bugging me, and we never have addressed it. But anyway, good point.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I'm making notes here.
All right. Well, let's. I think Chuck, did you get the NRCS Wayne's?
Should be on your screen now.
Okay.
Spring flow conditions.
Okay. I can do the USGS report.
Yeah.
Okay. And basically, Anne Marine's not on the call. She had some. She said something came up. So let me just read off what she sent us. So basically, she summarized the water year through March so it's October through March 2014. This is the cumulative average stream flow for 21 gauges, and as she says before, they're relatively unmanaged natural flow conditions, and basically it's the percent of average in comparison to the period of record for each gauge. And she says the daily stream flow conditions represented as a percent of the historical average for October through March were at or above for 8 of the 20 reporting river basins in New Mexico. Stream flow in the Gila was 15 to 42% of average stream flow values. Conditions in the headwater tributaries of the Pecos Basin range from 105 to 141% of average, and in the lower Pecos Basin from 47 to 57% of average. Stream flow conditions in the Animas River of the San Juan River Basin were 101% of the historical average. The headwater tributaries of the Canadian River Basin had stream flow conditions from 66 to 114% of the historical average, with mid to lower basin at about 31 to 35% of historic average, and the Canadian River main stem at about 23% of the historical average. Okay, moving on to the Rio Grande. In the Rio Grande Basin above Albuquerque, stream flow conditions range from 87 to 104% of average. Stream flow conditions for the Rio Grande below Taos Junction Bridge were 104% of average. Stream flow in the Jemez River near Jemez was at 60% of the historic average. So they're just kind of just showing a little bit of some of the like at the Rio Grande below Taos Junction, very close to last month's. It's a 104, and last month it was 105. I'm just going through the table to look for the biggest changes since last month. there's been a lot of an overall decrease. For instance, in the Rio Pueblo de Taos, this is number 7. Last month, it was, actually, sorry, one above that, the Coyote Creek near Golodrinas. Although that's a small amount of flow, it went from 54 last month to 31 this month. Going back to number 7, Rio Pueblo de Taos. Last month it was 101. This month is 91. Some of the bigger flows normally, like it's the Animas River near Farmington. Last month it was 108% of average. This month is 101. And Gila River at Red Rock. Last month it was 47. This month it was 42. Okay. Any questions on Anne Marie's table? All right. Chuck, did you get a chance to brief
I think
over?
Wayne's on the call. Are you still there, Wayne?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that, Wayne. I didn't know you were on the call. I didn't write your name
No
down.
problem.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Let's go over your report.
Okay, on the one that you've got up is fine. The snow precipitation update report from yesterday. If you kind of scroll through the various basins, most sites except the highest elevation ones have already melted out in New Mexico. The southern Colorado sites are holding on to snow a little bit better, like in the upper Rio Grande. You can see that. But it's melted out quite a bit in New Mexico, and we're probably about close to a month ahead of normal on this melt out. The other thing that we've seen is as Raymond kind of mentioned, a lot of the snowpack has melted and it's not showing up in the stream flow, so it's just not making it into runoff. We're either seeing probably some sublimation from the warm, windy days that we had, along with infiltration into the soil before it ever gets down into the streams as runoff. So I don't think there's any surprise. Runoff forecasts have been low all spring, and it looks like the actual may even be a little lower than what was forecast. Part of that will depend on what in the Rio Grande and the San Juan Animas San Juan basins, what comes out of Colorado, because their snowpack was a lot better than ours this year. This kind of like has been the case for the last few years. The state line was basically the cutoff on a lot of the storms. So Colorado was getting snow when we weren't. So anyway, not much left on snowpack in New Mexico. If you look at the other report that I sent out, it was the weekly update report that comes out for the whole West. I'll just kind of hit some high points there. The temperature on the first page has pretty much been above average west-wide, with the exception of some of Wyoming and Montana, but the West has been pretty warm over the last 7 days. It's also been fairly dry, especially in the Southwest. As you go on down, you can kind of see on the next page there, Chuck, the west-wide snowpack update. New Mexico, Arizona, and most of the Pacific Northwest are already well below normal. Colorado and Wyoming are still holding on to some pretty decent snowpack, so we may see some benefit from that in New Mexico as it comes downstream. Otherwise, a lot of the rest of this has been covered in the drought monitor update and whatnot, so I'm not going to necessarily go through each individual. You guys can kind of glance through the report, and if you see something that is you have questions on, just let me know. But it's not looking good for snowpack and runoff is about all I can say this year. And we're
in about the fourth year now of pretty low runoff and pretty low snowpack. So it's definite. The effects are definitely kind of culminating. We did see the rainfall event last fall that really boosted reservoir storage over in the Pecos and helped the Rio Grande a little bit, but not near as much. So at least we do have a little more storage on the Pecos going into the season this year.
Wayne, or
Yes.
anyone, this is Rich. I have a question, kind of a general question for whoever knows the answer. Is anyone evaluating where the snowpack loss that's not going into runoff is due mainly to sublimation and where it's going to actually increase soil moisture? I'm interested in seeing if somebody's doing that and if we could correlate that with forest conditions or, large burned areas.
We are starting to try to monitor that a little bit. Over the last few years, we've been trying to upgrade quite a few of the snowtail sites to have soil moisture sensors along with wind speed and direction, solar radiation, relative humidity, those kind of sensors as well. The issue that we've got with trying to make any real, widespread interpretation right now is that we don't have a long enough period of record on the data. So hopefully over the next few years we'll be able to kind of get a little better idea of what's soaking into the ground versus what's just sublimating off into the air.
Okay. Are you working with some researchers on looking at assessing that stuff in the future, or doing interpretations as you gather that data?
There are some folks down at NMSU that are looking at the data as well. We've been kind of hit and miss on our getting together on figuring out who's going to look at what and how. So that's something that I'll be trying to work on this summer.
Okay, can I call you offline about that?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, any more questions for Wayne? Okay. Is going on next on the agenda is either John or Molly on the call or there?
Try again.
This is Ken Richard for Molly and John.
Okay, great.
I'll just give their presentation. You guys, we've been kind of talking about this, and this is just the presentation is just going to show current reservoir levels relative to last year and also what the average is. So the graphs will look like this. The overall, this presentation is pretty similar to what Molly presented last month. The graphs are following the same trends. Overall, all the reservoirs except for 2 are below what the average is, and all are above last year's levels except for 3. Navajo is currently above what last year was slightly, but below the average. Same trend in Ute. Santa Rosa is one of the 2 that's above the average and way above what last year's totals were. Same thing for Sumner. Santa Rosa and Sumner were the 2 that were above the average. Brantley, same trend. Heron is one of the 3 that are below last year's level, and below the average. Same thing with Alvado and Abiquiu. Elephant Butte is above last year's level, but way below the average, as was talked about already. Caballo, same trend. That's pretty much what I have.
Okay, thank you very much. And we also just we had our related to state engineer. We had drought task force on April 8th, which was last Tuesday. Any? We talked. I didn't provide a summary of that, but we could. If anybody has questions, and there was also a public event this week in Albuquerque. New Mexico First had a water town hall, and I don't know, had probably 200, 300 people. The state engineer, I think John Longworth was there. A lot of other folks were there. A lot of discussions on recommendations for water in New Mexico. Just about everything related to water was discussed. We can always forward that. I think they're going to come up with their recommendations in a couple weeks or so probably by beginning of May. I think that's about it relating to you guys' state engineer stuff. Can you think of anything else?
We have a Rio Grande runoff meeting here in Albuquerque on Tuesday. I believe that's at Wayne's place there in RCS.
It's actually going to be held at the BLM office on Montaño.
Oh, okay.
Our conference room was booked that day, so it'll be over at the BLM office 8 to noon.
Is there going to be a dial-in number for that?
Yes, there will be.
Okay, I guess will that be emailed out?
I emailed it to the group who normally attends. I can give it to you real quick for those of you who...
Okay, I think I got the email, but if you do have it, I'll take it.
Okay, yeah, let me pull it up here. The dial-in number is 888-844-9904. The access code is 1227741.
Great. Thank you.
Alrighty. Let's move on to the next. Is Les or Ryan on the call? Alright, I hear silence, so I assume they're not. How about Joylyn or Emelita with the Farm Service Agency? Okay, I don't think they're on the call. And okay, so any other topics that we need to talk about while we have folks on the line? All right. So let's talk about continuing for next month in May. So we have the our normal schedule of CPC updates on May 15th. That's a Thursday, so we want to have it after that. That's a little early in the month. Do you want to have it later? What's the weather service? What's your schedule, Chuck?
Monday the 19th is my best day. I'll be at a dam exercise on the 20th. And
how about the end of the week, like Friday? Are you available on Friday?
I'm scheduled off that day, so I can certainly come in. But
or how about the week after the following week, 26th?
You mean the 16th or the 23rd?
The end of the month. So May, like the week of May 26th.
Oh, yeah, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday's fine.
You want to do it on that Wednesday? 28th?
Fine with me.
How's that work for other folks?
That'll work for me.
For me.
Okay. I don't hear any problems.
10 a.m.?
10 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So May 28th. That's a Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you contributing. And
this is Richard.
Yes.
Before everyone hangs up, I
Sure.
wanted to clarify. There was concern about low stream flow downstream from Carlsbad. That's in. I'm not that familiar with the geography of New Mexico. Is that southeast New Mexico or southwest or south central?
No, it's southeast New Mexico.
Southeast.
Pecos River. It flows in the far west Texas in the Climate Division 5, the eastern part of Climate Division 5 in Texas.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
okay, thanks everyone.
Bye.
See y'all later.
Bye.
Sure.